Welcome back to another episode of The Unger Games. This is your host, Drew Unger. I have not done a solo episode in a bit. It's been a minute. Yeah, we're back. So there's a show that I've been looking forward to for quite some time now called Spider-Noir. It's on Amazon Prime. And let's just get to the jump. It's fucking awesome. Now, let me give you a little backstory as far as I understand, like where this project came from and such. If any of you have ever seen the Spider-Verse animated movies, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, also fucking amazing movies. Yes, they're kind of hard to like follow and latch onto because they're very comic book style animated films. Pretty sure both, if at least one, but maybe both were nominated for Best Animated Feature Oscars. Podcast episode that we've already done on this show, Project Hail Mary, Lord and Miller directed that. Lord and Miller really came to fame with these Spider-Verse movies, in my opinion, if I had to put a finger on it. So those movies are outstanding. And in those movies, there's a lot of different Spider-Men and Spider-Women and Spider-Pigs and just Spider-Man universe barf everywhere in glorious ways. And Spider-Noir is one of the characters, and he's this like really cool, shadowy, black and white, like over the top caricature of what you would think like a noir version of Spider-Man would look like. I guarantee you he's from a comic. I'm not like a big comic reader. I'm very much a video and TV show consumer. I'm not as much of a... I do read books. Books are great. Large books on bookshelves. Got a large book on my coffee table right now that I can't get through. Yeah, Spider-Noir in these Spider-Verse movies is voiced by Nicolas Cage, or I call him Nick Cage, and a lot of people are like, who's that? I get Nicolas Cage. And for those of you listening that don't know this, I find this to be fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Nicolas Cage is related to, I believe, the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola. Now, it's very bold to me. It's always been very bold to me, and this is something I've thought about for over 20 years. Francis Ford Coppola directed The Godfather, Godfather Part 2, and was coerced into directing Godfather Part 3, I'm convinced. Actually, I've read stories that he was like really convinced to do it, and they threw a lot of cash at him, and he's like, fine, I'll do it. If you're in the entertainment industry and you're an actor or you're a director or you're a producer and you're given birth last name is Coppola and you are bold enough to change it to something else, good for you. Like Nick Cage, being formerly Coppola, wanted to, I remember reading years ago, wanted to blaze his own trail and didn't want to live in the shadow of the great family name. And so Nick Cage has been this ridiculous, over-the-top, fun actor for many, many, many years. I was actually talking to my dad earlier today that, Nick Cage doesn't always pick or get put in the best of films, but he's always put himself out there to be in a lot of roles in hopes of being in the right films. And there were two movies that were like peak 90s action trash, I would call it, but like beautiful. I love using the term trash because it's just, I don't know, it's just a melting pot clusterfuck of just all this shit thrown in a bin. Sometimes there's beautiful trash. Who's to judge? But he was in Con Air in the 90s, and he was in a movie that I think I want to do a separate podcast on called The Rock, which The Rock was one of my like all-time favorite action movies growing up in the 90s. Super badass. Sean Connery, Nick Cage, Ed Harris, and Nick Cage fucking rocked that role, man. He was like a scientist that was trying to he was working on like some nerve gas shit, and he and Sean Connery have this great car chasing. Anyways, I'm going off on a Nick Cage tangent for a reason, because Nick Cage has developed this on-screen persona over the years as this wacky, goofy, today, this crazy guy who can nail lines but does it in his own style that is uniquely entertaining. So I've been waiting for this project Spider-Noir for a while. I think they did a trailer like at least 3 months ago. I could just be making that up, but I'm pretty sure they started marketing for this like too long ago in comparison to other streaming shows that don't do large campaigns in advance. So I've been dying to see this. One, for the love of Nick Cage. Two, for the love of the character that they spawned, briefly in the Spider-Verse movies with Nick Cage's voice. And three, just to see what a live action version. Yes, the Spider-Noir is live action, even though I've been talking about the character coming from animated movies. What this live action version of Nick Cage, who is, I believe, 62 years old now, playing a version of Spider-Man, a superhero, action based web slinger, comic book legend, and it's based in New York, I believe, in the 1940s, if not 1950s. It's post World War II, and it's like stylized as this really beautiful thing. So now you have an option to watch the show in color, which of course most everything we watch nowadays is in color. It's 2026, for God's sakes. Or you actually have the option when you select to play it on Amazon Prime, to play it in black and white. And I'm like very much a purist when it comes to like film. And if something is made in color and black and white, I'm thinking like, you know what? The color is probably really cool. And maybe one day I'll go back and rewatch it in color. But I'm like, let me give this like noir that's very in-world black and white, like narrative and tone by itself. Let me give this noir a shot in black and white. So I did. And it's awesome. It's awesome in black and white. It's an awesome, awesome, awesome show. There's 8 episodes of the first season. It all dropped at once. It's all out. I've been waiting a little bit to like kind of slow burn through this show because some stuff I'll binge and some stuff I want to. I really want to like let it eat at me for a little bit. And this show like really did eat at me for a little bit in amazing ways. And the creator of the show, Oren Uziel, has done other projects that I didn't necessarily think this was going to be like a home run, knock it out of the park sort of thing for him. He wrote 22 Jump Street, which is hilarious. He wrote Cloverfield Paradox, which I did not watch. He wrote the 2021 Mortal Kombat, which the story, like I've talked about on the Mortal Kombat 2 podcast episode I did, was meh. I don't know if I like that first Mortal Kombat story, but okay. And then he's done some other things. Escape Room Tournament of Champions, not watching that. And now he's at Spider-Noir. And like he and the directors that worked on it nailed it. There's a director that I like. Look, there's 4 directors, and each of them did 2 episodes. And this director that's been around for a really, really long time did the final 2 episodes. I'm gonna probably mispronounce his name, Greg Yatanis. But Greg and the rest of the directors, like, you guys did an outstanding fucking job with this. Greg, especially your episodes, there's a shot, like, I just want to call out where 2 women are meeting to have a secret discussion, and you use a sideways shot across like an old pool inside this building, and it's just like the stuff you did with these episodes, man, was beautiful. And you made like the noir like really pop in the final 2 episodes. If you're wondering, like, Greg's body of work, he directed 5 episodes of Presumed Innocent. He's done 3 episodes of House of the Dragon. He did 2 episodes of The Old Man. He directed episodes of Castle Rock, Snowfall. He did the revamped Twilight Zone, 9 episodes of Banshee, an episode of Ray Donovan. This guy's been around forever. I consider him a TV directing legend. He even did the Children of Dune miniseries in 2003. And he's Nash Bridges in 2000. This guy's been around for ages, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm not trying to age him or anything. He's really talented, and it says he's a Emmy and Golden Globe winning director and producer. Yeah, I mean, he's awesome, and you've seen a lot of his work. So good job to everybody that worked on this. Back to the show, it becomes this like noir sort of mystery, but then they really dig into the whole superhero shit pretty quickly, and they have different. I don't want to ruin the whole thing, but they have different characters with different superpowers that tie into the storyline, and somehow they tie the story into like World War II and POW camps, and it gets really dark. And I don't mean that just because I watched it in black and white and it's a noir, but it gets really dark in the storytelling. The casting's really great. Lamorne Morris is in it. He plays Robbie Robertson. He's kind of like Ben Riley, which is Ben Riley is Nick Cage's character, not as Spider-Man. He's a detective, private detective. And Robbie Robertson is a writer who's kind of like a sidekick for Ben Riley. They're kind of cracking the case together, if you will. And then Jack Houston is in this. Jack Houston's great actor, been in a lot of things. And Jack Houston plays one of the super powered characters. He's been in a season of Fargo himself. I believe he was in. Yeah, he played Richard Harrow in Boardwalk Empire for 41 episodes. So if you don't know the name Jack Houston off the top of your head, you'd recognize him. Another actor that I've loved for many, many, many years, since probably when I saw Gangs of New York in the early 2000s, Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson is Domhnall Gleeson's father. He plays Silvermane, who's I guess, mob leader that's trying to control the politics and the city. And God, Brendan Gleeson's so good in everything he's in. If you've never seen Brendan Gleeson in anything, watch Banshees of Inisherin. Please watch Banshees of Inisherin. Brendan Gleeson is a spectacular actor. So back to Nick Cage. They do a lot of this stuff where the character starts to really evolve around who Nick Cage is on camera. And so it allows him to be this weird, drunk, messed up in the head, dealing with these spider powers sort of guy. And like the way his persona on camera has developed over the last 25, 30 years plays into everything they did with this show. And now this show is on Amazon, and Amy Pascal has been a longtime producer of everything Spider-Man. I believe she might even own the rights to everything Spider-Man over at Sony. So this is a collab, I believe, between Sony Pictures Television and released or distributed by Amazon. But this is a big hit for Amazon, and I don't know if Amazon really pushed or marketed this as well as they could have or should have, because I think this is a really big property they have on their hands. We'll find out if it gets a second season and if they can push it and market it a little better. I don't think the marketing campaign for this was as strong as it could have been or should have been. I say that being somebody who has worked on plenty of marketing campaigns, so I'm not knocking Amazon or anything. I know they have a strict formula and a lot of them have strict budgets these days, but man, this should have been pushed a lot harder, because I've talked to people over the last 2 weeks since it's released on Amazon Prime if they've heard of it or seen it or know anything about it, and most people have no clue what this is. And that's really frustrating to me as a fan of all of this stuff, these shows, superhero genre, etc. This is big. Like, Spider-Noir is big, and God, I hope it gets a second season. So, I'm like almost 13 minutes into this, and I should have given like a overall score or letter grade to begin with. But I'm giving this show an absolute A. I'm not giving it an A plus. I'm giving it an absolute A. I'm not giving it an A minus either. I think there are so many aspects and qualities to this show, casting, the way it was shot, the way the black and white came out, the way it pops, the way Nick Cage just owns the camera, he just owns the shit out of every scene that he's in, and it's goddamn great. And you're wondering, I was wondering, but you're also should be wondering, like, how does a 62-year-old Nick Cage play Spider-Man? Well, first of all, Spider-Man wears a mask, right? So I can almost guarantee you, without knowing the exact details, that any of the scenes where he's really fighting or web slinging or slinging through the city or whatever, like, obviously that's either CG or stunt performers or whatever. Like, they're not asking 62-year-old Nick Cage to like do all that, but the rest of it's very passable, and you got to understand why. I mean, like, Spider-Man has these mutant powers, right? So he is a mutant. So, like, yes, the character Ben Riley that Nick Cage plays is older, and an older gentleman, clearly, like, visibly in the show, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have these powers. And they even play into that, where he's like an achy older man, like, when he's not in the suit. If this were to be an A plus to me, I think there would be a little more action sequences. But, like, let's talk about why it's an A. Most episodes are about in the 40 to 45 minute range. That's a home run to me right now. I don't need every episode like Stranger Things to be like 55 to an hour 10. Like, let's get off that. If the storytelling's there and the episodes are complete, I don't need a 55-minute runtime. Runtime of these episodes was fantastic. The way they weaved a storyline into 8 episodes of that runtime was fantastic. Like, nailed all of that. That keeps the pacing interesting. That makes you want to watch another episode. That makes you interested in learning about the characters and watching the story unfold. Um, I also wanted. I was shouting out Greg Yatanis for directing the final two episodes. I want to go back to that. There's a sequence in there that really reminded me of a James Bond movie. I feel like it might be not Goldfinger. The man, I think it was the Man with the Golden Gun. He did this thing with Brendan Gleeson at the end, and one of the main women in the show, and there's mirrors, and she's got a gun, and she's just shooting all these mirrors, and she doesn't get them. She doesn't get them. Like big throwback to not just James Bond, but other thrillers as well, with the way they shot that and played that scene out. Like that was awesome. Like there are parts of this show where you're like, oh my God, they really did some really cool, it felt like innovative stuff, even though obviously like it's 2026, it's hard to say anything's like really innovative. So it was kind of copycat in a sense, but unique feeling, especially with the black and white and the setting and the tone and the characters. It's just this dark private detective, Nick Cage doing this voice and the mask. And it all came together like, God, just really nicely. Like just, wow, just cherry on top. So impressed. Very proud of them for doing this. I'm really pulling for a second season. I've been checking. I don't think they've actually greenlit a second season at this point, but I do think this show absolutely deserves more than one more season. I would say this show could go on for a while. I think this is like Nick Cage at his prime, which I thought in the 90s was like Nick Cage at his prime, but this guy just seems to continue to reinvent and reinvent and reinvent himself on screen. So like, yeah, I'd check this out. Now, I got to throw some caution. If you're not into anything superhero related at all, no, you might not like this. Also, if you're not into anything superhero at all, I question your curiosity and imagination as a show watcher and moviegoer. I think the superhero genre, although it is seemingly very overplayed these days with all the Marvel movies and all the DC stuff coming out, I think the love and attention for the superhero genre is a little underrated or underplayed, and I'll explain that. It's stories about people, and anything that you're watching in a movie is not real. So if you're saying like, oh well, I don't like the superhero stuff because it's so like fantasy driven and not real, like, well, like fictional stories are relatively fantasy driven and not real too. Maybe not like the height of fantasy with superpowers and web slinging and Iron Man and Superman, yada yada yada, but fictional stories are fictional stories, and they do a really good job within this genre, the superhero genre, of telling really human stories. Like Ben Reilly is a detective who has really human aspects. He lost his former lover. He's falling in love with somebody else throughout parts of this season of this show. He's got friends that he's working with that question their friendship with him, and he questions their friendship with him. Like, there are very human driven aspects to the superhero genre, and also specifically to this show, Spider-Noir, that make the show interesting from the standpoint of you don't really have to be this big nerdy superhero genre fan to be into this superhero genre, right? Like, I think this is a really good in for this if you like Nick Cage and you're not a big superhero person. Let me give you a couple warnings real quick since you've made it to this part of the episode. There are some really graphic and like a couple kind of creepy or scary scenes in the middle of the season. Everybody knows like like Peter Parker's story, spider bites him, radioactive spider gives him the powers, blah, blah, blah. I don't know like the specifics behind the origin story for Spider-Noir, but this version in this show, there's a scene, and I'll warn you about this. There's a scene where he's kind of flashing back to the war scenes. Like I was telling you, like part of the flashbacks takes place during, I believe, World War II. And he stumbles upon this creepy room with like all these mutants being tested on and stuff. And it kind of threw me off. And like I'm fine with horror, but I'm like sitting there watching it in the dark at night, not expecting this at all, because it's been a pretty like upbeat, somewhat colorful show, although dark and in black and white, so I guess not colorful at all. But the spider that bites him is like this weird, like human spider mutant thing that just looks like it's just straight out of a creepy ass horror movie. So like, there's also a like a tripping out dream sequence like a little after that, I think, in the following episode where Nick Cage, Ben Riley's kind of like seeing things and like seeing spiders all over him and stuff. Look, it's a Spider-Man show. There's a spider aspect to it. But yeah, the mutant spider stuff is a little like it's heavy. Like it's dark. The imagery's like dark. Like I like at least a day after watching it, I kind of had the vision in my head of like, oh my god, like they made that shit really fucking creepy. Like that was cool, but it was really creepy. So yeah, Spider Noir overall an A. Really hoping for a second season. Really hoping for a third and fourth season. Cast and crew did an amazing job. Creator did an amazing job. Home run out of the park sort of material. It's on Amazon Prime. All 8 episodes are out. It's been out since the end of May. I'd say go check this out as soon as you can. Maybe leave me a comment or send me an email at thehungergamespod@gmail.com, or check out the Hunger Games Pod at Instagram. Or you can hit me up, the Drew U. But yeah, take a look at this show if it's something that you missed or if it's something that's on your list. And I hope you have as much fun with it as I did, because I thought I had an absolute fucking blast watching this thing. Spider Noir, Amazon Prime. This has been another episode of The Hunger Games. Thanks for riding with me.